guys, and we are back. I'm so sorry about that. Give me 1 second. We'll let everybody join the party again. But yes, we are going to bring on Gina, otherwise known as Custom Nib Studio. If you guys can hear me okay, please put a message in the chat, or if my video is okay. I did get disconnected, so again, please let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. But yes, you guys, so Gina is a wonderful Nibmeister. There's not many people who can do what she does. So this is going to be incredibly exciting. Perfect. And just to let you guys know, it is a Q&A. So anything that you have to ask, type in the chat. I do have a list of many questions that you guys have submitted prior to the event that we will ask for you. Okay, better video, it's clear. Okay, perfect. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and invite her back. I do apologize. Okay, perfect. Gina, I see that you're on. I'm going to invite you. We're going to try this again. Okay, boom. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it looks much better now. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was downstairs. I sprinted upstairs, almost fell. So I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
But thank you for joining us live. I know that you were about to give an introduction about yourself. First off, we appreciate you coming on live with us and dedicating part of your time on this beautiful Saturday. So please tell the people who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here. I'm Gina. I live in Los Angeles, and I grind nibs.
There you go. And I was telling the crowd, there's really not many people that can do what you do, or at least to the level that you do it. So what I want to do today is kind of conduct an interview style video, and then we'll also ask you some questions. The crowd did submit quite a few questions prior to the video, which we'll get to, as well as we'll also read the chat to see if anyone has questions they submit. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, perfect. So I'm so excited. I know I was talking to you on the phone. This is the first ever non-pen manufacturer or distributor we've ever had on our channel, so it's truly an honor. I know when I was live with Carrie, you know, we talked about you because you did the big Esther Brook project. And even prior to that, like months ago, he was like, dude, you got to get her on. Like, get her on live and just see what she does. So thank you. Okay. So I think the entire community is curious. The first thing I want to start off with is learning, how did you become part of the fine writing community, and more importantly, how did you get involved with nib tuning and nib grinding?
So I did an apprenticeship with John Modishot of nibs.com for almost 4 years. So I just learned from him. I started out kind of doing a lot of vintage repairs and things like that, and then a little nib tuning, and I just like totally loved it. And so by the end of my time there, I was doing like most of the grinds that were going out the door. And so now I've continued that on my own.
That's fantastic. You know, it's cool once you kind of start something off maybe as a hobby, and then you fall in love with it and you take it to the next level, which it seems that you have. Before I actually continue, you guys, make sure you check out her Instagram. It's Custom Nib Studio, and your website is customnibstudio.com, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Perfect. We'll talk later on how the audience can acquire your services and kind of the process of sending pens into you if they desire. So talk to me a little bit about the apprenticeship. How did you land that, or what kind of things did you learn?
It's kind of a funny story because I just moved to Los Angeles, and I actually applied for the job on Craigslist.
Nice.
Which will make a lot of pen people kind of mad, I think. But it just sounded like so interesting, and I'd actually never used a fountain pen before I started working there.
No way.
It's true. So I came into this all backwards. Like, I'm just getting into ink now. Like, I started out with nib tuning, and now I'm working my way backwards to getting into ink.
Wow, I can guarantee you anybody else who does what you do took the exact other route. So it makes you even more impressive. That's crazy. I did not know that personally. So
It's funny.
definitely had to learn quickly, I would imagine, and kind of figure out the components of fountain pens, how they're put together, how the nibs work, and all of that. So that's awesome. So did you find yourself jumping in right away, or did you have to get like a fountain pen 101 type of lesson?
Yeah, I mean, I came in there to do like nib tuning basically. So I was kind of trained to do that from the very start.
Sure.
Um, and it was kind of cool going in with like zero knowledge. You know, I didn't have any bad habits that I had to break or like misconceptions that had to change. So I was like
Hmm.
starting from scratch, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I have some bad habits. I can barely read my handwriting, so I'm the guy. So at the store, I'm the guy that just writes on post-it notes, like quick scribbles, and as long as I can semi-read it or remember something, then we're good.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay, so now to talk about your services and your business. What type of services do you offer?
So the bulk of what I do is nib grinding. So I custom grinds on pens, things like cursive italics, stubs, architect points, maybe adding flex to something. That's the bulk of what I do. I also do some repairs, mostly nib repairs. If you have a bent nib that needs to be straightened, I do that. And occasionally I'll do some other types of restoration repairs, depending on what it is. If you know, if I've got the parts for it, I'll fix it.
Sure, sure. I can only imagine that you just never know what's gonna be mailed to you or what someone's gonna inquire about. I mean, I don't know how many different pens there are out there, but even if you're tuning vintage pens as well, I mean that's a whole nother animal that I'm not familiar with. As you know, I'm sure at Atlas we deal modern day pens, so that's already a tough thing to do. But yet you're focused on that and the vintage. I got to give you much credit because that's a whole
Thanks.
nother animal.
I mean,
Awesome.
that was what's cool about the apprenticeship and working at a place that both sold vintage stuff and modern stuff. So I kind of got to learn a lot about what is out there. I mean, I'm not like, there's a lot of people on the internet who know way more than I do about so many vintage things. I'm definitely not like an expert in what all exists, but I can usually fix it.
Literally all that matters. As long as you can fix it, then boom, your job is done. That's awesome. Yeah, I've always considered dabbling into some vintage style pens. When I was at the Chicago Pen Show, I was contemplating, but I have no idea how to value any of that. And it's crazy because I see some of the collectors at these pen shows. They'll have like a Pelican M800 from 1990, 1991, 1992. Obviously prior to that, but like they'll know exactly the differences between the nibs and the bodies, the barrels. It's truly a wonderful thing and a very confusing thing. So awesome. Um, Before we talk about your recent projects, I kind of wanted you to give the audience an idea of maybe some of the different nib grinds that you do. Like a custom italic or an oblique. What does that mean on a nib?
So, a cursive italic is one that I do a lot of. Basically, that means that you get a narrow cross stroke and a wider downstroke. Um, and an oblique is just that, but cut on an angle. So that's for people who rotate their pen one way or the other. And then there's also like stub, which is the same concept as a cursive italic, but more rounded, more tipping, kind of a little more user friendly, but you also get a little less variation with that. Um,
Sure.
and then an architect point is basically a cursive italic turned on its side. So you get a narrow downstroke and a wide cross stroke. So that's really good for like block printing, or a lot of people use it for writing in Hebrew or Arabic. It's a really interesting grind. I really like doing that one.
I have to say, you've explained it like the easiest way possible. When I try to explain it to people or people are talking about it, I don't get across the point as easily and as fluid as you just did.
I
So,
do have a lot of practice, so don't
there
worry.
you go. So excellent. So I'm pretty sure this is one of the questions, but I got to know right now, what is the most common grind you do? What's the most popular one people are seeking?
That's a good question. I think something in the italic range is usually the most common. But also architect points are kind of gaining in popularity, I think, and a lot of flex too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
notice the flex pens are just they're it's a new trend, I should say. You know, everyone's looking for flex pens,
Hmm.
steel flex or gold flex. And that actually brings me to another point. I was on your website and you offer to add flex nib. Now,
Hmm.
are you able to do that on a steel nib or is it just a gold nib?
So the way that I do it, I only offer it on gold nibs, specifically 14 karat gold nibs, because of the kind of makeup of the nib. It's if you get into higher carat counts, they can be too soft and prone to kind of bending in ways that you don't want them to bend, permanently bending, not flexing, you know? So the way I do it is I remove material from the underside of the nib to thin it out. So it's kind of more like vintage flex than having the notches cut out.
Yeah.
So
How
it's a different.
Sure. Yeah. How long does something like that take to do? You know, I mean, I'm sure the different grinds all take different times, but
Yeah.
what stood out to me was adding a flex or adding some flex to a nib. That just seems like a very delicate process. Obviously, they all seem delicate, but it's mind blowing. I never even knew that you could add flex to a nib until I saw it on your website. So
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on so many factors, really. Like, it even depends on factors like, is it a pen where it's easy to remove the nib or difficult to remove the nib? That adds a certain amount of time. You know, is it a nib that I've done flex on 100 times, or is it a nib I've done flex on a few times and I maybe have to take it really slow and like really check in with it and do a lot more testing along the way. So all that adds up. But flex is definitely one of the ones that takes more time than others.
well, I have to imagine it's a very precise and you have to get the point to the exact point or the exact amount of flex. So that's crazy. I'm telling you, I don't think I'd have the patience to do something like that. And I know for a fact it would take me years because I would just screw up so much stuff. It's wild. So perfect. Moving forward, so I know your most recent project was the Esther Brook Journaler nib. Oh my goodness, a lot of people are just all over it. We get calls all the time. The second we get
Wow,
in stock, they're sold out.
that's so
So
nice.
yeah, oh yeah, you killed it. It's awesome.
Oh,
So
so glad to hear that. That's awesome.
yeah. So walk me through kind of how you landed that project and kind of the process of how you collaborated with Esther Brook to put your own taste of a nib on their Esther Brook pens.
So I've known Carrie for a while, just from pen shows and everything. He's so great, as everyone who knows him
Shout out
knows that he's great.
there.
So we had kind of been talking for like a while, like we got to do something. We have to like figure out how we can collaborate, you know. And then it finally they approached me at a show, not that back when there were shows,
Uh, and rest
and
in
they were like, basically just pitch us something, like just figure out something you want to do and tell us what it is. And so I kind of looked at Esther Brook's catalog, their vintage nibs, and was I want to do something that was like an homage to a vintage version of their nibs that they offered. And so I wanted to do kind of a medium stub, which is something that is like so usable and so fun for most people to use, but is kind of like hard to find on a modern pen right now without taking it to a nibmeister. So that was kind of my thought process there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so basically what Esther Brook did is obviously the collaboration was a huge success, but they took away that step of needing to send the nib to get custom work. So it is a genius idea. I'm telling you. I've played with one and it's awesome. And
Well,
I,
thanks.
I hope that's a collaboration that is an ongoing thing. I mean, obviously, I don't know how long it takes to do per nib, but I'm telling you, everyone is mind blown. So we got to give you
Well,
all
thanks.
the world.
I have
So
a batch here that's like I'm working on that's going to be mailed out soon. So hopefully there will be more kind of out there shortly. I'm working on them.
well, Carrie always knows that whenever they're available, we're always ordering. So
Nice. Awesome.
um,
Thanks.
So now I don't know how recent this other project was. I'm actually familiar with this other pen company, Mythic Pens. I've been following them on Instagram, and I think they're custom pen makers, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So you are the Nibmeister for that company, so now they can advertise and list your projects and services on their pens. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of order my grinds through them. Like if you're already getting a Mythic pen and you want, you know, an italic on it or something like that, I'll be the one to do it. I have that actually set up with a few pen people. Heinz Pens is another one that I work with. Yeah, it's great. Brad's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I've been in contact with Mythic Pens. I actually tried to beg him to let us sell some of his. And then Heinz Pens, I'm a little familiar with. I've seen their photos. Oh my goodness, the custom pen game is just out of this world, and the amount of possibilities that you can create with all the different colors and materials, it's just a whole nother ballgame. Real quick.
Yeah.
Roll in. I don't know if you'll have the answer. Will the journaler nib also be available on future Esther Brooks, or will it only stay with the SD and the Camden?
That's a good question. I do not know the answer to that right now. I probably some of it depends on how well it does. Yeah, that's a great question. I do not know the answer.
So I think an appropriate answer for that would be obviously it's up to Esther Brook, but I know sent the opportunity to you, I guarantee you'll jump on it. So I don't know what Esther Brook has planned in the future. I mean, it was pretty big when they released the Camdens, because that's a big difference from the Estes, which is what they're known for. I know the Sparkles just came out, but other than that, I mean, there's not too many other pen models, but I'm sure when a new one drops, they'll probably hit you up and be like, yo, slap your work on these pens and it's going to sell. So
I think you can get it on the Sparkle ones.
Oh, can you?
I think so. Am I wrong? I hope I'm not wrong, but I believe so.
So, oh my gosh, let's just talk about the Sparkles for a second. They absolutely killed it.
They're so good. Yeah, I got to see them at a show, and I was like, okay, but what are those? Like, tell me about these pens. I have such a soft spot for sparkly pens.
Yeah, they pop, they stand out. The inspiration and the collaboration they did with the Diamond Dust, and it's all, Esther Brook is doing the right thing right now, and I got to give them credit too, because when you make collaborations with other companies or individuals who are really good at what they do, it obviously shows in the product. So
yeah.
Another quick question. This was closer to the beginning of the video. When did you realize how enthusiastic / crazy the fountain pen community is, and how do you handle groupies?
I don't really that's not a thing that happens, I don't think. But yeah, when did I first, well, when I worked at nibs.com, I would get these beautiful handwritten notes sometimes, with grinds that I had done, and that was kind of my first view into the passion that people have for them. And it's really just been reinforced every pen show. It's great. I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I do have to say your reputation is growing rather quickly. So I can see in your future, if you have time to collaborate with other pen companies, that we'll probably start seeing your work on a lot more modern day pens. So that would be awesome.
Great.
Okay. Oh yeah. So another quick question: when you make a pointed medium into a medium stub, how much tipping do you leave, if any? Sorry, I'm just reading a few of the questions before we jump into the previous the questions that were submitted prior to the video.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's definitely tipping. They always have tipping. I always leave tipping, and with a stub, you leave quite a bit of tipping actually, because of the geometry of it, as opposed to something like a crisper italic. You take more tipping off. But yes, of course, some tipping is removed because the whole process is about shaping that tipping into the final shape, for lack of a better word. If that makes sense, I hope that that's helpful.
Sure does. I'm still telling you, you still explained it very proper.
Thanks.
Cool. So I know I spoke with you prior, actually seeing if you were able to show your workstation or some of the work that you've done. Is that available for us to see before we go into some more questions?
Yeah, I can do that. Here, let me reverse.
Oh man, and I'm waiting for personally.
All right, let me scoot back here. Yeah, so this is my little work zone. It's small, you know, but it's home. A little messy, but not too bad.
So, so
Yeah.
what, so what are we looking at in terms of the process of grinding the nib? So, a customer or a client reaches out to you. They ask a specific, you can do this grind on their pen. Then what? You agree, they send it to you, and then you take it to your workstation, and then there's different mechanics involved, different ways to approach that nib and grind it, or what's going on in the overall process?
Yeah, so I have kind of a list of the basic grinds on my website. So, and then people will send me an email or fill out my submission form on my website. And then, if there's a further conversation that needs to be done, like where they're maybe not sure what they want, or they're like, I have this pen, I love how it writes, can it be like that? Then we'll, have a discussion about what's possible. Yeah, then they send it to me, and I, inspect the nib, make sure everything's lined up, everything's kind of where it should be, in the right, everything's oriented correctly. Yeah, and then I, do the grind and do a test writing with it, make sure it's all good, and then send it back.
You say it so nonchalantly. Yeah, I just do the grind. It's all good. Like, I just want people to realize how difficult it is to do what you do. It's truly fascinating. If you don't mind, if you can show the workstation again,
Sure.
a brief overview, kind of like what's what, why is it located there, or what are these things used for?
Okay, so, well, all my inks are up there, obviously. And over here's my main grinding station. I have a bench lathe, and I have a coarse grinding wheel on the left, and then a finer felt wheel on the right for polishing. I keep all kinds of goodies in here, like all my converters, spare bits. I have my little toolbox here. Got all kinds of good stuff in there. Pen tooling is where I get a lot of my stuff. They're great for tools for
You said
all kinds.
tooling, like TOOLING.
Right, yeah, pen tooling. I get a lot of my supplies from them.
Okay.
Some of my pens, washi tape in here, of course. Very important. Very important to have. Yeah. Maybe that's helpful.
Right now, a lot of us wish we were sitting where you're sitting. That's awesome. That's awesome. Was it like a safer wooden cubicle, or that where your converters are in? What was that?
Yeah, it's like a vintage Schaefer thing that I got from a fountain pen store here in Los Angeles that went out of business, sadly.
Oh man.
So yeah, I got some fun little things there. Yeah.
Hey, well, cool. I mean, your setup looks fantastic. I mean, my desk is the pen counters up in our retail store. So, excellent. Well, thank you for showing us. You guys keep some of your questions in the chat. We will get to them hopefully before time is up. I'm going to go ahead and start on some of the questions that were submitted prior. We already discussed what a lot of us have been asking. What's the most popular nib grinds? So we'll move on to the next question. Do you prefer grinding new nibs or repairing bent nibs?
It's such a different process. I think in terms of, I think I prefer making new grinds on new nibs, but repairing bent nibs is kind of like, it's a very zen kind of process, but you kind of lose yourself in because it's so delicate and so small and so time consuming. It's like apples and oranges, very different processes.
You wouldn't think it's apples and oranges unless you are a nib meister. That's so crazy. Yeah, I've always wondered, we obviously get people who bring damaged pens into our shop, and they drop the pen, it lands on the nibs and
Yeah,
whatnot. And I'm really happy that we're creating this dialogue, because now I feel very comfortable sending people to somebody who I know will do a fantastic job. So,
thanks.
our play is sending them to the manufacturer or seeing if the warranty's applied. But obviously, people keep fountain pens for 20 years where the warranty's done. So the best
Yeah,
bet is to send it to a nibmeister, because with how crazy the pen community is, people they latch on to their pens, and you got to
sure.
pry the open to get the pen out of there. So
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. And I'm always happy to also like just tell you what's possible. Like if you have a pen and you're maybe not sure if it can be fixed, like send me an email. I'll do my best to try to like help troubleshoot and see what can be done. 'Cause sometimes it can be fixed, sometimes it can't. Sometimes it needs to go back to the manufacturer for parts. I'm happy to talk about it.
and it's better to know before it's just tucked away in your desk drawer, and
Hmm.
years go by and you never use it again. I
Yeah,
actually see it a lot with Mont Blancs, low key. We get a lot of people like, oh, I've had this passed down, I don't think it works, I don't think there's any value. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
yeah.
So okay, excellent. So, okay, the next question was, do you have any other plans to do other collaborations like the Esther Brook Journaler Nib? I don't know if you have anything else lined up, or if you are
I
looking for something.
Yeah, I do have one thing in the works, but it's not fully like cemented yet. So I'm not sure I want to like fully talk about it yet. But yeah, hopefully there will be some more things coming down the pipeline soon. And as soon as like I'm allowed to talk about it, I definitely will.
Believe me, I know all about the secrets. So I do my best to make the pen companies tell me their secrets. Sometimes I'm successful, other times they're pretty stern and they're like, nah, dude, you just gotta wait.
You just gotta
So,
wait. Yeah.
so the answer is stay tuned, guys. Stay tuned. Okay, so we also did briefly touch on how long does it take to tune a nib, how long does it take to make a custom grind. In terms of some things take longer than others. But do you have like a time duration, like maybe a couple days per project or a couple weeks? What is that looking like?
So, in terms of like turnaround time, I have about a 3-week turnaround time right now. Just how long the queue is. So that's where I am right now with that.
Sure, sure. And I can only imagine you're going to be getting more and more phone calls, more and more emails. So if you need any emotional support, you give me a call and I'll send you a smile.
Thanks.
Um, okay, this next question, which nib size is easiest to grind? I have a few fountain pens that are on the finer side, but I have heard that they are more difficult to work with. One, is that true? Two, what are the easier nibs to work around?
That's a really good question. So I think in general, broader nibs are both easier to work on because you have more space, and also they give you more variation in the result. So the broader you start with, the more difference you'll see. Like for instance, on a cursive italic, you'll get a broader downstroke, and so it'll look more extreme against that narrow cross stroke, if that makes sense.
Rather than
But
a medium nib.
right, exactly. So, but on the other hand, if you write small and you want a cursive italic on a fine nib, that's great. I can do that. That's fully possible. But you will just see less difference between like the cross strokes and the downstrokes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So basically, guys, what we're discussing is the larger the nib, the more variation with the customization. So
Exactly.
excellent. Okay, this is a personal question for you. Well, it's great to see all your inks. I'm gonna throw a question out. Have you ever finished an ink bottle before?
Oh my gosh. Well, I finish my testing bottles all the time.
Yeah,
But in terms of personal ink, have I actually finished one yet? Yeah, I had to have.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's so tough. I've only finished one, and that's Noodler's Q Eternity. It was like my first ever ink I fell in love with. A super nice blue black, and it's a really weird feeling when you finish an ink bottle.
Yeah, I'll show you. This is my favorite. at least right now, is the Iroshizuku Inaho is like,
Oh, yeah. Is that like
that's
the
a favorite of mine.
golden one? Like the golden yellow color, brown
Yeah.
maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Iri Suzuki line is just, it's a fan favorite, and you can't deny it. I mean, Pilot put
So
out a
good.
big set of ink, so
Mm-hmm.
cool. So this is going to lead into now the next question. How do you choose your next fountain pen? Do you base your decision on cosmetics, nib feel, the story behind the pen?
That's a good question. Total like gut feeling 9 times out of 10. It's like, do I love the color? Is a big, that's like number one on the list. And there are some pens, it kind of goes both ways in terms of the nib. Like sometimes I'm like, well, I love a sailor nib, right? So I know I'm not gonna have to do anything to the sailor nib because it's already perfect. And then on the other hand, sometimes I'm like, well, I love this cheap pen and I know I can do whatever I want with the nib, so it doesn't have to be good out of the box, you know? Because yeah, so it goes both ways.
So I'm pretty sure that the individual who asked that question was also in our store the other day and asked me that question. And it's very odd because, you know, we see a lot of pens coming in and out through the doors. You see a lot of pens coming in and out of your workplace. And the way you answered it was kind of how I answered it. I was like, well, one, I look, do I own that brand? Two, do I have something like that? Like, do I have a purple pen? If not, I probably should get one in my collection. So I'm a big Pelican guy. I love Pelican. It's honestly one of my favorite brands. But a lot of people think I have like every 800 and M1000 up to date, but I don't. And it's just simply because if that's how it worked, I'd own every pen that ever came in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to be selective. So awesome. This next question I really like a lot. If you were not a professional nibmeister, what career path would you have chosen? What did you grow up thinking you were gonna do, or what would you have done if you weren't a nibsmith?
Well, I went to college for architecture, so probably something in that zone is a likely culprit. Yeah, I think, or something with art. You know, I've always made art and, you know, done things in that arena.
Absolutely. Architecture, architect nib. Wow, there's connections.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is a question in regards to the actual nibs and smoothing the nibs. What grit is the best for smoothing a nib, and how can you effectively remove micro mountains or catches on the nib? I've tried grinding some nibs on my own, and it hasn't been pretty. Exclamation mark.
So anyone who's interested in doing anything like that, my top recommendation is just to go slow and spend a lot of time looking at the nib under magnification every step of the way, so you can see what you've just done, what the effect is, and then that helps you hone in where you want to be going. In terms of just smoothing a nib, I recommend micro mesh, which is the 12,000 grit. It looks like this. It's gray. Well, I mean, this one's all inky, but that's always a good thing, but it can be dangerous. So go slow, like 1 or 2 passes, try it on paper, find where that little burr is, and then replicate that motion on the paper. But you want to be careful because it's really easy to make a flat edge, and on every flat edge means that there's a sharpness on the other end of that. So you want to try to keep it round.
So you
if that makes sense.
You can overdo it easily.
Very easily, much more easily than you think.
Okay. So you guys don't attempt that with an expensive pen. Maybe, you know, mess around with some inexpensive pens or disposable pens, or
start with Jinhao and work your way up. Is what I
exactly.
say.
We're putting that disclaimer out there right now before we're telling people to use the micro mesh. I have read a little bit about it, and I've heard it does wonders. I've never messed with it myself, but I've heard that it cures a ton of issues with the nibs. So
it can also create many issues. So you gotta be careful.
But life's short. The more problems, the better sometimes. Am I right? All right, perfect. I've got two more questions that we're going to derive from the Q&A log that I have here, and then we're getting quite a few submitted in the chat. So we'll go through these, then we'll answer the questions that are submitted live, and we'll just keep going until Instagram's sick of us. So
okay.
So moving on, I would like to learn how to customize, tune, and fix my own nibs. Where do I start? How do I start getting on track to performing these procedures correctly?
So number one is just spending a lot of time looking at nibs. You know, you want to learn the shapes and the geometry there and how that affects the writing, I think is number one. Number two is, you know, once pen shows start happening again, there's often nib tuning seminars that you can go to that are really great, and learning this stuff in person is a lot easier than learning it kind of in a vacuum. So I definitely recommend checking those out. Yeah, really just like looking and writing and figuring out when you make a small change, what's the effect, you know, and then kind of going from there.
So it's safe to say it's honestly a big trial and error process.
If you don't have someone sitting there training you to do it, yes, definitely.
Okay, and you know, I've only been to a very select few pen shows, but I have heard that a lot of individuals who grind nibs or they tune them, they'll let people just stand over them and watch the process live. And I think that's a really cool idea because of the fact that it's truly magical. Like when you bring a broken nib and it's fixed, and let's say you haven't wrote with that pen in 3 years and you're able to use it again, I mean, that's got to be such a good feeling. So what pen shows do you attend? I mean, excluding obviously 2020, but where do you normally find yourself going?
So I usually do LA and Chicago, DC. This year I went to Baltimore and Philly, which were amazing. I really like those, and I think I'm definitely going to do those again. And I have plans in the future to go to St. Louis and Denver. Oh, and San Francisco, of course. Oh my gosh, how could I forget San Francisco?
And yeah, that's almost in your backyard, I would assume, right?
Yeah, it's great and such a fun show. Really, just like great.
Excellent. So yeah, we only do the Chicago Pen Show. You know, that's in our backyard. We're hoping to hopefully go to more, but I don't think people realize it's a lot of work. You know, it's a lot of time, effort, moving all your material, your resources, traveling. So so when people attending multiple shows, you got to give them a lot of credit because it's not easy.
No, it's not. Oh, and hopefully Tokyo in the future is also on the list.
I saw Tokyo on your website, so that brings up a great point. Have you ever attended the Tokyo, whatever show is in Tokyo before?
No, it's new. It's pretty new. They've only been doing it a few years. I am supposed to go this year. They're still having it. Right now, they're not letting Americans into Japan at all. If that changes, I'm going to be there. And if it doesn't, I'll be in Tokyo next year. So
nice.
Either way, I'll make it there eventually.
Well, you know, I'll go with you. So we'll have a buddy system.
Yeah.
Boom, we'll take over the show.
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay, the last question I've got for you is probably the most important one of the day, in my opinion. You know, you have to love what you do. When you love what you do, it's not a job, right? So I love selling pens. When I'm at my family business, it's my safe place, right? It's my chill spot. For you, when you grind nibs, I'm sure that you have a favorite nib that you prefer to grind, right? It's easy peasy. It's your comfort zone. What nib grind would that be?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I feel really good with most of them, honestly.
Wow.
I
love it.
I don't know. I don't want that to sound braggy or whatever, but there's nothing that's too, I mean, and honestly, it's kind of fun when I get out of my comfort zone sometimes. Like I have some close pen friends who will be like, can you do this? Is this a thing? You know, this isn't really a grind, but I kind of want you to just experiment with this. And that has been super fun to get kind of, this is a terrible business plan, by the way, to get weird requests, you know? But in terms of fun, I kind of like some weird requests once in a while.
Yeah, you know, it changes things up. So it kind of throws a curveball at you, and overall, it enhances your skills. I mean, You know, if anything, it makes you better and more well-rounded. So now some people are actually asking about some of the nibs you've worked on. What's the cheapest nib you've worked on?
Oh, I mean, I've worked on gin house before. That's
Yeah.
pretty much probably as low as it goes.
Yeah, so, and somebody I think asked, what's the weirdest request that you've ever gotten?
That's a good question. Weirdest request. I don't really think any of them are too, I mean, weird. Some people ask for things that are physically impossible, and I have to tell them, like, look, physics just means that that's not going to be what you want it to be. Like that can't work, you know. Like
Can't
I,
define physics.
yeah, exactly right. So sometimes you have to kind of, you know, let people know what is possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Someone was saying they're super glad that you're getting FaceTime. They're very happy to see you live. Somebody's also yelling at me because I use ballpoint pens. That's a bad habit. Whatever.
Hey, I have a Parker Jotter that, you know, it's in the rotation, you know.
It
It
gets the
serves a
job,
purpose.
gets
Yeah.
the job done. Nice. Somebody was saying that Flex is the best. A lot of people are saying hello. We went over that. Sorry, I'm just browsing through the chat real quick. This is fascinating. I'm learning so much. I'm right there with you. I just learned a boatload today. It's a lot different when you hear it, you know, face to face or hear it live rather than when you're browsing like Reddit or somebody's
Oh, sure.
website. It doesn't click as well.
Mm-hmm.
With all the pen companies you supply in one fashion or another, plus individuals, what is your work pace like? Hours still the same? I hope so. So what's going on in your life right now? I mean, obviously a lot has been affected by the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing is we're all in this together. Everyone's affected in very similar ways. But has anything changed dramatically in your style of work?
Well, the lack of pen shows has been a pretty huge change for me this year in terms of just business. But people have been great and super supportive, and I have a huge. Actually, I can show you my huge pile of boxes here, waiting to go, and there are more elsewhere. So I
Yeah.
have a backlog, which is great, but trucking along, you know.
Hey, that's all you can do in a time like this.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. Make sure you guys any nib grind you want, you inquire from Gina herself. I think this is a great time to bring up. I'm gonna send you a pen, and we're gonna talk. You're gonna be the
Cool.
first person to give me a custom nib grind. So I'm
Yay!
very
I'm so excited.
yeah. I
That'll be
don't know
so
what
fun.
it is yet. I don't know what I want to do. You know, I haven't decided. We'll chat though afterwards, and
Yeah,
I might even just say surprise me. I mean, honestly, I'm not picky.
we'll talk about it. We'll figure something out. It'll be good.
Excellent. Do people do that? Do they just say, "Hey, surprise me," or is it most of the time, "Yo, I want this, this, and that"?
It's pretty rare that people say surprise me. It's usually people who I've done several things for at least. So then that makes it easier because then I know kind of like what they like. Um, yeah, I prefer to work it out kind of beforehand because I hate the thought of somebody getting something that they don't like.
Especially if you can't really turn it back. You know, once you proceed,
Right. Right. Yeah.
it's a full-time relationship. It's a commitment. Once you commit to it, you know, it's tough to turn it back. By the way, the question was, it wasn't what was the weirdest order that you've had. The question was, what was the dumbest order you've had?
I really think it just in terms of dumbness, just people who maybe had a misunderstanding about what was physically possible, you know, something where it was just not enough tipping, or, you know, they want a needle point that's going to write like smooth. And it's like, okay, well, imagine writing with a needle and then think about how that can't possibly be smooth, you know, things like that, where it's just a physics problem.
How could you? You're crushing dreams out there, Gina. Come on. Awesome. This next question, I believe, rolled in when we were talking about Sailor and how the expectation for Sailor nibs is to always be flawless. Somebody was asking, is it possible to grind a Sailor 21 karat broad to what they consider a medium fine, and would it just be narrowing the grind?
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's definitely possible to keep the the general character of the nib, but make it finer. Of course, it will change it, but yes, that's absolutely possible.
So it doesn't defy physics, so we're all good
No,
there.
that's good. Yeah, no physics problems there.
I'm glad you got out of the way. We don't need to call Bill and I. We're all good.
Mhm.
Okay. Somebody else asked, what is the best grind for a steel fine nib?
Well, a lot of that is personal preference. If you are new to getting nib grinds, I'd recommend something like a smooth, crisp metallic or a stud, because that stays relatively usable at a fine point, but will give you some added flair to your writing.
Absolutely. I like the word flare. Flare, sizzle. I like that you said crisp. I was getting so much flack because I've been saying the word crispy a lot. Like, oh, that pen looks so crispy. And some people love it. Some people are like, nah, bro, don't be saying.
That's funny.
Awesome. I honestly, I can't recall if we just straight up asked you this question, but somebody asked, what's your personal favorite size nib and grind?
Well,
For writing, not
for
necessarily
right,
itself.
yeah. I I have like a Hobonichi planner, so I use a lot of finer nibs for writing in there. But I have like a pretty wide range of grinds because I get bored with something and then I'll just throw a grind on it. I really love the architect point. That's like my favorite, especially like a finer architect point. I think is really fun for fine writing. So
Absolutely. I honestly, for a second, thought you were gonna say, I don't really have too many different nib sizes. I just like standard.
medium,
Oh,
I just use a medium.
the job done. So I'm happy you say that you have quite the selection of nibs to choose from. People were throwing out some pen shows. Obviously a lot of people like the San Fran, Philly, Baltimore. Let's hope 2021 delivers. We hope so too.
Yeah.
I know that John uses script ink when he's working on a pen. What ink do you use when adjusting flow? And do you have a standard paper you tested? That's a fantastic question. Shoe leather, that's a really good question.
Yeah, I do. So I use one of two inks. I'll either use the here, I'll show you the bottles here. I'll use Waterman Serenity Blue or the Schaefer Script ink in blue. And those are both really good middle of the road inks that give you kind of a good sense of kind of where things are. And then in terms of paper, I use a kind of bad paper. I use like a type of like printer paper, but it's not like the worst paper, so again, it's kind of a middle range where if it writes on this paper, it'll definitely write on your wonderful, very nice paper, and it'll also write on the bad paper at work that you have to use sometimes.
So let's say like a balance, or it's like an equilibrium in terms of and paper. I'm happy you showed the Schaefer. That brings me to another point. Obviously, Waterman is known to be like one of the safest inks out there in the market. But I just want to take a second. I know the same company that owns Cross actually owns Schaefer, and I wanted to give Cross a shout out. The Cross inks are really, really good, and not many people really know about them because it's not necessarily as much of a journaling pen brand. It's more of a traditional pen brand. So I just wanted to give Cross a shout out. Make sure you guys go check out their ink. It's pretty clear that Schaefer has fantastic ink. They've also been around since a little bit longer than how old I am, just a little bit. But cool. I don't think we've asked this yet either. What's your favorite fountain pen?
Oh my God.
One.
No, I have so many. I mean, I really do. But I love small pens as a general rule of thumb. I'll show you two of my favorites right now.
The suspense. Woo!
Well, okay. First of all, I love the Kaweco Sport. I do. It's not the fanciest pen in the world, but I love them. I have a few of them, and when they come out with the color I like, I have to get. That's that's
Hey,
the deal with that.
classic, no pun intended.
Um, I also have here, let's see, I really love Aboya fountain pens, which is a Japanese brand. They're made with ebonite, that are just like, they're so dreamy. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I love them. They're also fantastic people. Big fan of Aboya. I really love Japanese pens. Like, those are like really close to my heart. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to do a little like show offy thing because I just got this pen last week and I'm losing my mind about it. I just got this Nokia Decapod.
Oh
That's
man.
like my absolute dream pen, and I finally got it, and I'm just like totally over the moon.
Wow. Well, first off, congratulations. That's
Thanks.
awesome. So I think it's safe to say we'll say that's your new favorite pen.
It's my favorite pen today, you know. Yeah.
There you go. That's a very fair answer. That looked awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I don't
Yeah.
have any right now. I got them all at work, but I'm a traditional guy. You know, like I said, Pelican. I've got a Cross Peerless. Um,
I love Pelican too. Actually, I got this guy not that long ago. The green olivine one.
the olive.
I like the smaller size, you know. It
Yeah.
works for me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Pelican with what they do. I love the ink of the year idea where they come out with the new ink color and then they make it in the pen. The Olivine
Okay.
they kill. I love the Olivine too.
Me
So
too. Yeah, that's like perfect.
cool. Well, I'm glad that you also showed many different colors of pens because that just proves the point that it's too difficult to stay with like one brand or one color. You got to just have a wide variety.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you for sharing. Somebody said such an interesting field to go into. Have you talked about how you got started? What do you love about your work? Where does your passion lay? So feel free to give a brief overview. I know we discussed it a little bit, but for the newer listeners, I'd love for you to share again.
Yeah, so I started out by apprenticing with John Modishaw at nibs.com. And in terms of what I like about my work is I love craftsmanship has always been super important to me. And I like being able to kind of work at my own pace. Having a workshop is like such a dream of mine. Like my grandfather had a print shop when I was growing up, so I kind of grew up in like a family business environment of like a small workshopy type place where there's like a million drawers filled with a million tiny parts, and you just get to like work on stuff. It appeals to me on a very deep level. You know, I love having my
Yeah,
own space to just work on stuff.
yeah, it's cool. You get to see what you can construct, right? You know, it's
Yeah.
this piece and piece makes that piece. So absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I think we're approaching like 4 to 5 minutes left. I know Instagram will give us a 2 minute timer, but let me go through the chat. Okay, yeah, we have quite a few questions, so we're gonna have to do some very quick answers if you don't mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first off, let me tell everybody again, go check out Gina's company, customnibstudio.com, and her Instagram, which should be posted in the video, Custom Nib Studio. We will save the video on our page so you can reference back and get all the information that we have shared today. Gina, thank you again for coming on. Just in case we get cut off, I want to really say thank you. You know how excited I was to bring you on here, and I got to
Yeah.
say, it's very entertaining, insightful, and it's never a bad day to keep learning. So I'm learning a lot right now from you.
It's so fun.
Absolutely. All right. So next question: Can right obliques be smooth?
Yes. And it depends on how you write and how you hold your pen.
Okay. Perfect. So the short answer is yes, absolutely. Gina, I'm sure you don't mind if people shoot you DMs too afterwards if there's questions or. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm also sure we'll be doing this again sometime in the near future. So, guys, if we don't get to your questions, we do apologize, but you can go ahead and shoot her a direct message or shoot us a direct message. All right, next question. Do you like grinding gold or steel nibs more?
Both are pretty much the same, but gold nibs will last longer.
Okay, perfect. What does an architect fine line look like, and what makes it unique?
So what makes an architect unique is it's the inverse of most common grinds, where it gives you a narrow downstroke and a wide crosstroke, whereas most grinds give you a narrow crosstroke and a wide downstroke.
Perfect, perfect. Somebody is saying that they're enjoying themselves. This is wonderful. We both definitely agree. Thank you for tuning in today. Did you do a personal grind on that deco pod?
No, not yet. It's too new. I haven't decided yet.
So that leads into the next question. What nib size is on that?
It's a broad, so I have like a lot of room to do something fun with it eventually.
All right, perfect, perfect. So no, a lot of people are asking, did you alter the nib?
Napkin nibs are also so great out of the box. I'm like not fully sure if I want to grind it.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Did you grow up around fountain pens, or was it a discovered hobby? If you did, then did you grow up around grinders? So we did kind of review that. You did not. You actually you went on Craigslist. You tuned. No pun intended. You tuned in and joined Matashaw, and boom, you all of a sudden jumped in and you became a baller and
yeah,
really?
yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
If you kind of jump over the hurdles and go around the obstacles, that's what happened. You had no idea what you were doing. You took the challenge upon you, and now you're just killing it. So that's awesome. All right, Gina, just because I'm scared for the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out.
Okay.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to the viewers or anything before we go today?
Just thank you for having me on. This was like really great and super fun. I miss everybody from pen shows so much, so it's really nice to get to like reconnect on the internet. And yeah, anyone has any questions about any of this stuff or anything else pen related, like send me a message. We'll talk about it.
Perfect, perfect. I love how outgoing and friendly you are. You're very easy to work with and collaborate with. So you guys make sure you go ahead and you inquire about her services. She will probably make your nibs do things you never thought they could do.
I'll do my best.
Absolutely. Gina, thank you so much. We seriously appreciate it, and we can't wait to have you back, okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
All righty. You take it easy now, and stay cool or warm, whatever the weather's like in Cali, all right?
Okay.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Seriously, it was a nice switch up and a very informative video today with Gina, otherwise known as Custom Nib Studio. Please go check out the services she has to offer. I'm going to go ahead and send one of my own pens in. It'll be the very first custom nib grind I will ever receive, so I'm super stoked. I will make sure to share that once we determine what it is I'm going to choose and once I receive it back. But thank you guys, as always. We really appreciate you tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. Keep staying safe, keep smiling, and keep practicing social distancing. Peace.